Welcome in to a new Buff Stampede film room. William, it's been a little while since we did one of these. It took some big news for us to get back out here to the Blake Street Tavern. Jake Moretti, the top in-state recruit from the class of 2017, decides to switch up from Ohio State, and now he's a verbal commit for the Colorado Buffaloes.
Who could have seen that coming? It just kind of came out of the blue, and I don't think anybody could have imagined. But that's as big a news in recruiting as CU has seen in a long, long time.
I remember the first time I saw Jake Moretti, we went out to a Pomona game, both of us, to look at Dylan Middlemiss, do a video feature on him. And by the second half, we were just both fixated on this sophomore right tackle. Of course, he's moved to left tackle since. That kid, even at that time, being a skinny sophomore, had that special quality you look for in a recruit.
Well, he already had that size, and he already had that ability to play the game and the physicality already, and you don't expect to see that in a sophomore. And I remember us being there and talking to him, and he stood there and waited for us after Middlemiss, and he already had maturity to go along with the size, and it was very obvious just from watching him. And we were standing in the end zones kind of watching from behind, which is the best place to watch an offensive lineman, and he was just so far ahead of the game as a sophomore, it was hard to believe.
He's listed at 6'5", 265 on Scout. You've had a chance to see him, though, more recently. It sounds like he's quite a bit bigger than that now.
Significantly bigger. I was out at the spring scrimmage for Pomona. They scrimmaged against Highlands Ranch down at Shea Stadium down there. And that was late spring, early summer. And I talked to him specifically. Got to work with him a little bit. He said he was 295, and I had no reason not to believe it. He certainly looked like it. And looking today at some of the photos that are out there from some of the combines he went to this summer, he looks like a man. He's a gigantic individual.
I said already, he goes to Pomona High School in Arvada, just outside the top 100 nationally, and again, the top in-state recruit this year among the top 15 offensive tackle recruits nationally. He was verbally committed really early to Ohio State initially, back on July 4th, 2015, so basically a year and a half spent on the Buckeyes commitment list before switching up. I thought initially, William, that this was a guy that maybe needed a year in the weight room, redshirt, kind of go the Timmy Lynott route. You're not so sure about that.
Well, everything's sort of up in the air with the knee injury, but when I saw him at the beginning of the summer, he was ready to play right now. I mean, what I saw from him on film at the beginning of the summer before that knee injury was a kid who could play as a true freshman. Quite frankly, as a senior in high school, I think he was ready to play at this level. His technique is so polished and so advanced. He's the best high school lineman I have seen since Jake Long, who I got to work with at a Michigan camp, a long time ago. But this kid, in my view, is the best lineman to come out of Colorado that I've ever seen.
So we don't have, obviously, senior film to break down because of that torn ACL, which was unfortunate for him. What were kind of your main takeaways? Did you kind of dive into the junior film a little bit?
Well, I looked at the junior film, and again, I was at that scrimmage, and I was actually on the field 10, 15 yards behind the offense and watching him very closely, and had the opportunity to work with him a little bit and help him tweak his technique here and there. And he's just so advanced in his technique. He's got good pad level. He knows where to put his hands. He knows where to put his feet. He's excellent in the run game. He's excellent in the pass game. And if you watch that junior film of Moretti, Pomona was primarily a running team then, and he's just so dominant, it's unbelievable. You go back and you watch that junior year film, and it's like child abuse watching him out there. So he's got a great combination of physical and nasty, and yet he's athletic, and he's got the length and the long arms. There's no doubt as to why all these schools wanted him and why Ohio State wanted him so heavily. I mean, this kid is literally one of the best prospects on the offensive line I've ever seen. The good thing for him, the bad news is the knee injury. The good things about it is he had that surgery on that in early July, so he's way ahead of the curve in terms of if he'd had that during the season. The second thing is he's an early enrollee, so he'll do his rehab in Boulder with arguably the best sports medicine people in the country.
Any question marks aside from that knee injury, or is this a surefire all-conference guy down the road?
No weaknesses. This kid has no weaknesses that I've seen. He's as good as anyone I've seen. I think he's a 4-year starter. I think he can play left tackle, right tackle. I think he can play guard, center. He can play anywhere on the offensive line. And I think this guy, barring injury, is going to be just a fantastic player. He's got a great work ethic. He's very humble, so that no matter what happens to him, he's not going to get a big head. He's not going to get lazy on you. And there's just nothing negative about this kid.
How early is this guy starting lineman for the Buffaloes?
Well, again, it's a big question mark with the knee injury, so he's got to rehab that and have it come back. But he'll be in there with Drew Wilson in January, and with our coaching staff, and we've got that brand new, beautiful medical facility there that he can rehab in. And assuming that there's no problems with that knee injury, I don't think we need him to play as a true freshman. But I think as a redshirt freshman, he steps right in where Jeremy Irwin leaves, and he's competing with Miller, Isaac Miller, and with Hagler, and with guys that are significantly older than him, because this guy's the real deal. And maybe he's a guard for you until he steps out to replace one of those older guys.
All right, Jake Moretti, Colorado Buffalo. I hope you enjoyed our breakdown of his game.